Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Accelerator. I am your host, Lara Cooper, and today we have special guest Lindsay Cher Burgess of Greenwallscapes, also fondly known as the Moss Boss. So, if I can pass it over to you, can you please tell us a little bit about just your background and what you do now, what you've done to earn the name Moss Boss?
I am Lindsay. I am the owner and creator of Green Wallscapes. I started this business by accident 6 years ago when I made a small moss wall piece for myself. And then we ended up showing it to some friends, and some friends wanted one. And then we were making them in our house and doing it very part time for about a year and a half. And then in 2018, when I had a project that was ending, and my husband said, "Well, why don't you see if you can do green wallscapes as a full time job?" And I said, "This isn't a business," and I was wrong. It is a business. We have done over 1,000 moss walls all over the U.S.,
Wow.
Canada, and the Caribbean in the last 6 years. And we have done projects for every major brand that you can think of, large developers, also tons of dentists, mom and pop shops, yoga studios, med spas, etc. And so the reason that people like moss walls is because they are created from preserved moss. What that means is that it looks alive, but it is not alive. So you don't have to water it. You don't have to put it in any
Mm,
special lighting. It's actually better
I
if
didn't know that.
it's not getting blasted with too much light. And you can do really cool creative things that you can't do with living plants. You can cut it in very specific ways, and you can do lots of fun colors. And we incorporated some other real and preserved foliage, as well as some faux flora into our pieces too, based on clients, requirements. So every piece is custom fabricated. We do custom colors. We do custom, like I said, we've done custom logos, tons and tons of custom logos, and have really become a leader in this very niche space.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. And I did not know that they didn't require maintenance. So I already
Yes.
learned something today.
Yes.
Very neat because that was always my first question. I didn't know it was you at the time, but now I do that I've done, my research. But you go into certain hotels or businesses and you see these beautiful wallscapes, and it's just, oh my gosh, I want that in my house, but I would kill it. And that was always the first thing I thought of is just I couldn't keep it alive and then I wouldn't do it. It's dude justice. So that's good to know.
Yeah, so you don't have to, which is what's the benefit of these. And so a lot
Yeah.
of times we'll replace even living walls. So there are green walls that are alive, so that have real plants, but they require, irrigation systems, and they
Mhm.
require living plants to be changed out, pruning, etc. These are you literally screw them on the wall, and they sit there, and you really don't have to touch them other than like a little bit of dusting, um, you know,
Yeah.
every once in a while.
Cool. So you
Yeah.
said you started the business by accident. So it sounds like, I mean, you created a market for this, right? And it blew up. So how did you, I can't imagine that scaling was a smooth process, right? If
Oh,
it took off
horrible.
quickly.
Horrible. These were a product out of Europe. Like they were making them they've been making them in Italy and Germany for like 10 plus years. So the ones that were sort of my inspiration for our business, I saw online, and I was like, these are really cool, but you literally could not get them in the United States. I think there was one company at the time that was doing them. And so I was like, and my husband and I, we make things. So, we're like those people that are like, oh, I can make that. Oh, I can make that, kind of
Yep,
thing. And the
same.
first moss wall that we made, all the moss fell off because we used the wrong adhesive. So, like, it's not as easy as it looks. And,
Yeah.
and, it was not the best application. We didn't do it the way that we would do it now. And so, but I've always
Way to
been kind
learn.
of very creative, and this has been really wonderful because it combines like my love of branding and marketing with my love of art, and getting to put those two things together with plants. Um, and then, we're going into a lot of like really sterile office spaces, a lot of CPA firms, law
Yep.
firms, med spas, and everything right now is so sleek and so minimalist and so beige that, the green is just like it brings a whole energy and a whole feeling that, you just can't get from these typical interiors that people are designing right now. So
Yeah,
it's
that's very
it's
true.
really it's a really nice way to warm up also like very cool spaces. And so
Mhm.
it started very organically. I mean, I always like to joke like, we did one, then we showed another friend of ours, and then we did another one, and then we just, it just sort of started to roll. And then I started a little Etsy store, and I was putting $2 a day on my little Etsy store advertisements. And again, we were the very early in this space, so people needed it, and then we had better photos than the other people that were doing it. Now it's a little bit more crowded, I would say, and actually people steal a lot of our design. So we're kind of pushing the envelope with regards to design. But it's still, we're able to do, lots of, and where we thrive is like these very large scale projects. So I like projects that are 100 plus square feet personally,
Oh, wow.
because we have, systems in place to be able to do them. And also to, be able to execute on a very high level. And so, we're working on a project right now in the studio that's 560 square feet. So
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
it's
What is
enormous.
your process for this? Because I'm sure you're not doing it alone at this point.
No, no, no. I have a team. I have a team of 8. So we have a whole process. I think you and I, before getting on the podcast, were actually talking about, the importance of processing and process mapping and all this
Mhm.
kind of stuff. So, um, we have a whole process for marketing. We have a whole process for operations. We have a whole process for fulfillment. We have a whole process for project management, which we have refined. We have checklists for everything so that the same experience, the client gets the same experience, whether they're doing a 3 foot by 5 foot moss wall or they're doing a 500 square foot moss wall. The same
That's
principle,
unique.
um, you know, can apply. And so it took years to develop this process, and it took years to make it smooth. My team manages beautifully, because we've documented so extensively, and because we have honed it continuously. I also have just an amazing team of people who have experience
Makes a
doing
difference.
visual, working in the visual space and in the fabrication and production space. So, which is not the easiest thing to honestly to find in the U.S. So, it's been a really interesting experience. I have had periods where I've had more employees. I've had more closer to 12, and it's like becomes too much. Like the fabric, the supply chain issues and other things like that make it. So this is kind of a sweet spot number. It's like we're moving fast enough that we're making money, but we're not like losing our mind in terms of, the time and making sure that we have to anticipate buying materials like crazy and things like that, because some of our materials have like a 2 to 3 month lead time depending on what they are. So, and
Wow.
depending on the time of year too, because moss grows, right? So moss has to grow, it has to be harvested, it has to be dyed and preserved, and then it has to be shipped
Mhm.
to us. So there's a whole process with that. And it also changes seasonally, so the moss is different during different times of the year, which is all things that we've learned from having done a bazillion of these
Okay.
projects.
And my mind is going in so many directions just based off of the last 60 seconds. So I can't imagine where your brain has been for the last 6 years. Because I'm thinking, I mean, number one is the same vendor growing, harvesting, dyeing the moss, all these things. Do you have any control over that process? Do they work exclusively for you? And then on the other end of it, how are you shipping this? I mean, you have this 560-foot piece. Are you building it on site? Are you shipping it?
No, no, we're
I
building
mean,
it
I can't
here and then
imagine
we'll
the
drive it.
tension.
It's big enough that it actually, and we're going, it's the project's in North Carolina. So we're going to just drive it up there. Usually projects over like 400 or 500 square feet, unless they're on the West Coast, it really makes more sense to drive them, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's using a moving company or using, as opposed to using a shipping company. When we do the 100 plus square foot, we have a whole freight program. We crate everything and we send it via freight, and haven't had any issues. These get built on panels, and it's like basically like a giant puzzle. And so one of the things that we developed over time was, like special cuts so that when people are putting these together, because we don't always do the
Mm-hmm.
installations, a lot of times the installations are done by contractors and art installers in the local markets, which really helps with, it reduces a lot of the installation cost. And we have a whole system in place and all these videos that we've made for the installers locally, so we don't have to physically
That's
go.
nice.
So we're
Yeah.
able to manufacture and then ship it. So if I were to ship you a moss wall all the way across the country, it does not make sense for you to fly me out there to have a day of travel both directions and that kind of thing. When you have a local guy who has screws who can screw it into the wall, the biggest
Right.
issue with moss walls, specifically a lot of them that come out of Europe and that come out of China, is they have straight lines. The problem with the straight lines is that it's very hard for an inexperienced person to do an installation where it looks like one giant piece as opposed to multiple pieces. So that's just been something that we have perfected over time so that anybody can install this and it's very easy. And if the pieces aren't fitting perfectly, then you've got the wrong piece next to each other. Like they're cut in a very
Yeah.
specific way.
Yeah. It's a puzzle,
So
right?
it's a puzzle.
That's a
It's
great
literally a
idea
puzzle.
too.
But unlike the puzzle, we number them so you know where the pieces go.
Ooh, nice. So you don't have to flip them over. You don't have
You
to
don't
look
have
for
to like
edge pieces.
worry about it. Exactly.
I know as you've been talking about the scale of these, I'm thinking because we have our house is pretty modest in size, but the entryway is 2 stories, so you
Mhm.
can see all the way up to the top floor. And I have been just mulling over what to put in the entryway for the longest time because it's nothing just seems to fit right. So I'm gonna have to do some shopping on your website.
Yeah. So for something like that, I would definitely recommend like shapes, hexagons or circles or strips or something where you can create a lot of movement and verticality. And then you can
Okay.
determine like how you want to do it without necessarily covering the entire wall. We get a lot of calls when people are like, I have this huge wall but they don't have like a massive budget. So a lot of times we'll suggest, those kinds of solutions for something because then you still get movement and it looks really more like an art piece, but you get
Mhm.
plants on your wall and they look really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, maybe I'll send you some pictures after this
For
and pick
sure.
your brain. I would love
Love
that.
it.
I I would like to say that I'm a creative person, but I get overwhelmed by the options. And so do you usually help your customers kind of think through the design and I mean even the colors?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we're consulting with the client, we have three kinds of clients. We have a client that literally sends us this design and we just make what the client sends us.
Mhm.
Those are rare. Client two is typically a hybrid client. Like they'll say, I have this wall, but I know I only want to do a 4x6 or an 8 by
Mm.
10 or whatever it is. And then the third client is, I am calling you and here's my space. What should I do here?
Yeah, that's me.
And that's exactly. And so we do more of a consultation. So typically we'll do sort of a little bit of a graphical, view of your wall. And like, this is kind of the placement that we would think. In some cases, we do designs. We typically will quote people between that step of like, what are you thinking you want? And then we'll
Mhm.
quote based on that. And then based on that price, then you can make a decision and we go down like our whole design process. Because there's a
Okay.
process for, making sure that size wise you think it's going to be big enough. And then there's a whole process. So dimensionally, it's big enough. And then there's a process for like the actual flow of the material between the different, if for example, we're doing hexagons and you want them to kind of flow between and have them have some sort of relation to each other, then
Mhm.
it would be a situation where we would design that. We would send you the different flows of moss and you would choose one and then you would lay it out on your wall exactly that way.
Mm.
And that's how that
That's
would
so
go.
special.
So it's
Very
really
cool.
cool. I mean, that's like really, really fun. And so, yes, but it's taken a long time to develop a design process. It's taken a long time to develop, like, because each one of our designs have a different fabrication process also. Some of them are incredibly detailed and require a lot more trimming and more, to make certain kinds of lines. Others are like more loose and organic and soft. And so you have to kind of navigate between those kind of nuanced things. And then sometimes people like, even with the renderings, even with the drawings, they don't get what they're getting. And that's probably the most challenging one is like, I promise you it's going to be beautiful. And usually they're
Yeah.
much more thrilled with how it looks in real life once they get it.
I bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always been blown away by how they appear in person. And to your point, we live in a very modern era where everything is minimalist and clean and sleek. And so
Mhm.
it's nice to just get a little bit more life in your day, especially if you don't have, if you're in an office space without windows or something. But
Exactly.
concrete
Exactly. So
jungle.
like we love an office space with no windows. That's fantastic for our moss because it means that you're not going to get the light that's going to fade the material and all that kind of stuff. So it's super fantastic. Yeah. But
Yeah.
all the space, we do a lot of spaces with like that wood that's behind you. I mean, it's just a
Oh,
lot of
nice.
that wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. It ended up working out perfectly. I bought all these pieces on Amazon actually.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Just for the audio, it has that sound barrier on the back. And then my husband had just built our house over the last couple of years, and we actually just had some leftover trim. And so this horizontal piece is just trim from the
Love
house
it.
that covers the seam. So it was perfect.
You know what? Reuse anything you can. I love it. I
Yes.
love it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
He's smart. He'll be my installer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he knows how to drill, right? Like, so that's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask, because this caught you by surprise, but you're a trained professional before that. So, what what is the best and or worst advice that you received just as a business owner, whether it was with this business or one in the past?
The best advice I've ever received is probably like just keep going. Like I know it sucks now, but just keep going.
Yeah. That's
And
good.
um, I think that like the difference between people who have long-term success are they're willing to try, they're willing to admit when they're not doing something correctly, and they're
Mhm.
also kind of a little bit delusional. And so they'll just keep going, even though sometimes you're like, oh, this is terrible. And I can tell you, like, the last 5 years have not been a smooth 5 years in business. I mean, we had, 2018 I started, 2019 I started hiring people, 2020 there was a global pandemic. 2021, I couldn't get material and I couldn't get employees. 2022, things started to get a little bit weird again, and I had a baby. And then
Oh my gosh,
2023,
you're busy.
or no, did I have a baby in 20? No, I had 22, and then 2023 was like kind of recovering from having a baby and also trying to take care of
Yeah.
my baby and all that kind of stuff. And then 2024 has been like the election year, and so it was like we were crushing it in January, February. Like it was just like out of control, busy, 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 busy. Everything's moving, moving, moving. And like I would say like May, it was like, okay, the people started talking about the election, and then there started to be this. There's literally something that I heard about recently. It's called like um, election anxiety disorder, where people literally cannot make decisions because they have so much anxiety about what's going to happen.
I believe it. Yeah, it's
So
very consuming, or it can be very consuming, and it
yeah,
puts you into a stage of just analysis paralysis, and that hurts businesses, honestly, when you
uh-huh.
depend on those people.
Right. And
Is the
honestly,
majority
2020 was, whoops, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Well, 2020 was weird because 2020 we had the pandemic. So it was like 2020 was already out of whack. So we didn't have that same feeling. Like now we're back in the world is still functioning. But it's like, and then the interest rates obviously going up
Yeah.
exponentially didn't really help companies that much either. So, there's been a lot of learning in the last 6 years. And there's times where I'm like, I should just go get a job. Like that would be easier than this. And there's other times where I was like,
Sometimes, yeah.
I don't
I,
think
I
so.
mean, I mean, in some ways, probably, right? You can
Right.
clock out physically and mentally, but working for yourself is a freedom of its own. Even in the months or years when it's challenging, it's a freedom to know that you have the option to change direction or to pivot quickly if you need to, especially with a small team. We have a small one as well. You can move so much faster than when
Yeah.
you're at the mercy of, either be an employee at corporate or just be a corporate enterprise size.
Correct.
I'm curious, with COVID hitting, obviously a lot more people are working from home, myself
Mhm.
included. Offices, the just the real estate for that has gone down. Was that the majority of your business, is office buildings and places where people
Yeah.
go? Did you have to change the demographic of your client base, or how did that affect you?
So there were two things that happened that we saw. One was because no one was in the office, they were renovating all the offices because they were like, if people are going to come back in here, it has to be better than being in their home.
Mm.
That was the first thing that was happening. The second thing that was happening is that everyone was sitting at home going, I have all this extra money because the government's giving out money left and right. And I am also, or my business got saved by the PPP loan or whatever. So I've got this extra cash. I need a backdrop for my, when I'm sitting in my office with that's branded. I want something cool. I just want something cool in my house, or I have money right now that I want to spend on my home. So we shifted, we went 90% commercial, 10% residential to 90% residential, 10% commercial. And then it started, and then the commercial like exploded in 21. Like it was out of control, and we couldn't do projects fast enough at that point.
That's
And so,
incredible. I mean,
yeah, and at the
a
same
challenge of
time,
its own, but incredible.
yeah, and it was just, um, that was the time when we were also figuring out systems. I mean, you and I were talking about this before too.
Mhm.
Figuring out how do we make this process from when a customer signs to when a customer gets delivered, making sure that they are very well taken care of, they're very well communicated with, that we have all the details, because the devil in these projects is in the details. We
Yeah.
have had projects where they have measured incorrectly, and then surprise,
No.
we've had to send strips, of
Yeah.
2 or 3 inches because they gave us the wrong dimensions if it's a project's out of state and we're not going to do the measuring. And
Mhm.
so there's all of these kinds of details that we've had to like dispel. And then when you're doing installation, there's a lot of details with that too, because we do install a lot in Florida. And so when you have all of these, like you just have like a lot of nuances, like you have to know how tall the garage is, like, because if you rent a van or you have a van, then if it's over a certain height, you can't get in the garage. And in Miami, that's a very frequent problem. So it's like, those are the kinds of
Interesting.
things that we try to work through
Why,
so
Jane?
that it's very smooth. And I will say we are annoying to our customers because we're like, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? But then when we get there, the feedback we always get is this was the smoothest, best installation we have ever done. And we're on projects with like tons of other contractors, millworking and plumbers
Mhm.
and electrical and all that kind of stuff. And we're usually like the end kind of finishing contractors, when everything's getting cleaned and getting ready for people to come into the space. And so it's been really, great feedback to have from our customers about, what a positive experience they've had with us, not only in the piece itself, but also the installation.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
huge.
yeah, yeah. And so, it's been an interesting journey. And, part of me is, and, trying to decide, what do we do next? Do we buy another company that is another
Yeah.
Greenwall business? Do we launch other product lines? Do we launch other kinds of commercial art, that aren't necessarily the Moss, but or something else that we could,
Yeah.
um, do and facilitate for customers that we already have. And so a lot of the conversations that I'm having right now with my clients are, what else are you buying? What else do you need that you're having a hard time procuring? And if it's something that I think that we can actually make money with, that's probably something else, another line that we'll launch, once I get some feedback on that kind of stuff. And it's something that I think that we can actually do, because I'm not going to just like
Right.
retool
Yeah.
my whole studio and things like that. But there's probably things that are adjacent to what we are doing currently that, the client would just love to be able to like buy that, buy everything from us and not have to buy
Yeah.
from multiple vendors and things like that. Especially in larger projects, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I would imagine just consolidating.
Yeah,
Um, is everything made to order then? Do you have anything pre-made and just listed
we
available for
do.
purchase, or is that something you're
Yes.
considering?
Yes. So we do have a ready to ship, section, which is all products that are available.
Mhm.
And yeah, those are like frames, and we have mermaids, and we have hexagons, and we have squares, and we've got that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That's smaller, that's more like for retail purposes. And that's the stuff that we sell like when, like, and we make it like when we're a little bit slower, or
Yeah.
if we have some excess, like sometimes we'll be making a project and it like looks really cool, so we'll make like one or two more, then we're like, okay,
Nice.
cool, like if somebody wants to buy this later, that kind of thing. But I would say that the majority of our money comes from custom projects. Every time we make something, everyone's like, that's great, but I need it in this size, kind of thing, like that would
Mhm.
look better on my wall. And it's hard to be, I don't like to compete on the level of, price, for like smaller things. It's just not interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so it takes the same amount of effort to make a project that is, 15 square feet as it is to make a project that is, 500 square feet. So the 500 square feet
Same
one's a little
process.
different.
Yeah.
It's a different process. I mean, it does take a little bit longer. The sweet spot, I would say, is probably 60 to 150 square feet in terms of like profitability and in terms of, just ease for my team. Like they can crush it
Yeah.
and it's easier for them. You start getting to these monster projects and then it's a different dynamic. It's still fun to do them. We do 2 or 3 of those a year, but the really ones we love are that size that I was talking about.
That's a good thing to know as a business owner is what's highly leverageable because
Right.
as time goes on and as you grow, your time is going to become more and more precious. I mean, I'm sure it already is. And
Mhm.
so finding that sweet spot and marketing that, I'm sure, um, I mean, that's a great strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's like we'll still take small projects because the other thing though is like it gets tiring only doing big stuff. So every once in a while I like to have like the smaller stuff just to like give my team like a completion hit is what I like to call it. Like
Mm-hmm.
get it done.
Yep. Yep. It feels
So
good, right? Check it off the list
yeah.
and
So it's when you have the clients who call and they have like 15 tax returns and everyone's like
Mhm.
drowning in all these details and there's a million things all over the place and blah, blah, blah. And then
Yep.
you've got like nice Sally with her W-2 and then you just
Right.
process your thing real fast and you get it out the door.
Yep.
There's
You need a
like,
brain break.
exactly, exactly.
So I think you kind of already answered the question, but what's next for you in 2025? We know I mean, we got the rundown of every challenge, 19 to 24. So what are you expecting in 25, or do you think it'll be just
I
restabilizing?
think 25 is going to be a year that things start to really move again. I think that the election's going to be over. People are going to be like, okay. And I'm not saying like probably, first to second quarter. Once people are
Mhm.
just like, okay, well, this is the administration now and this is what we're doing. And here we go. That's what I'm hoping. I'm also encouraged by, let's be real, the Fed is going to be reducing rates, which means that people are going to start building
Yeah.
again, which means that, and there's people still building, there's people still doing things, but that's sort of like over crazy, zealous, insane thing that was happening in 21 and 22 isn't there just because the interest rates are much higher. And so a lot of
Yeah.
things aren't penciling and they'll start to pencil again. And then a lot of the developers who have been sitting on the sidelines who own property already, they're going to be ready to get going. And so that's really positive. And then in the meantime, like I said, I'm having lots of conversations right now. And I'm also doing some process cleanup and some other things to really sort of see like, what am I missing? What are the opportunities? Are there possibilities of, like I said, and you and I had this conversation too, is there a possibility of acquiring something? Is there a possibility of, just doing something a little bit, a new product line? Is there, and, every time I say this and we get a little bit slow for a month or two, things, and then I'm like, oh, what's it going to be? And then we get so busy again and slammed again with my primary
Yeah.
business. So I don't want to pull too far away from where we are right now because I also want to make sure that I do have the market for it, because I'm not going to invest in lots of machines and tooling and all that kind of stuff if it's not going to necessarily pay off.
Yeah. No, the financial aspect is obviously
Right.
important. And just if it's something you enjoy doing, because if it is just a timing issue, then, going completely into left field on a new product line might not solve the timing issue,
Correct.
right? It's just timing.
Right.
So, well, I'm excited for you. How can people find you?
So you can find us on greenwallscapes.com. You can find us on, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We have a blog. We have all sorts of different things. So you can find us on
Nice.
podcasts like this. And so we love, love talking about moss balls and we love doing this. And we've been just so lucky to have the amazing customers all over the country that have supported this crazy niche dream that I
It's
have.
amazing.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
it's fun when people hear what I do, they're always like, wait, that's a business. And so, it's been really it's just been a really neat process. It's been so cool. And it was my dream to do something like this. And so it's really fun when your dreams become a reality. The challenge with dreams becoming a reality is they come with a lot of things that are nightmares also. So
Yeah. Nightmares are dreams too. So
that's true. That's true. Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, you are right. It does come with a lot of responsibilities
It
as
does.
well.
It does. And I think that like I was very blinded to the amount of responsibility that being a business owner is because you don't get paid until everybody else get paid. And there's periods of time where you're getting lots of
Yep.
money and there's other periods of times where you're not. And you know, there's times where you have to make investments and you have to make guesses and you hope things are going to work out. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And so it's a wild experience to be in this process and having done
Yeah.
this and that kind of thing. And so, and making things is also very challenging because, you know, you're going from just sort of a concept into the physical world. And there's a lot of challenges with that. And there's a lot of, you know, and we're importing material from Europe. And so there's challenges with shipping and there's challenges. I mean, there's challenges in every part of this business. I did not choose an easy business to be in.
Mhm.
So I always joke like
No.
my next business is going to be fully digital, online.
Maybe you'll just help design and someone else will
Exactly,
build.
exactly, exactly. So anyway, no, it's
Yeah.
been a really incredible process, and you know, getting to work with just wonderful people, and my team is just spectacular, and so that's you know everyone's like, oh, da da da, da you did this and that. It's no, I am just the face that gets to talk on these podcasts and organize things, but my team is the ones that are like executing and making it happen day in and day out and holding me accountable and forcing me to keep pushing and innovating and doing all that kind of stuff so that we can keep doing this really cool work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, sounds like a group of superstars.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can't ask for anything
Yeah.
more as a business owner than just at working well with your peers and having people that hold you accountable as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. You know,
So,
that's been a journey too. I mean, that's also part of it. And that's what I always say to people is like, who you're going to start with is not who you're going to end with. And I'm sure you've heard this adage before. Obviously your business partners is one thing, but like with your employees, like
mhm,
there's certain people that are going to take you from A to B. And then there's people or 0 to 1 is what they like to say. And then there's another group that's going to take you from 1 to 10.
mhm,
And there's another group that's going to take you 10 to 100. And so, you know, the challenge is I'm a person who really likes the 0 to 1. I don't like the 1 to 10, and I don't like the one, like, I don't like process. I don't like, you know, these kind of when things get like the same thing over and over again. I like the sort of creation part of it, but all the money is made once it's sort of a stabilized thing and is already rolling. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean that's important to know about
yeah,
yourself too, is do I want this to be a lifestyle business or am I like in this for the business investment
right,
itself?
right.
And then towing the line between the two
Mm-hmm.
and just keeping your sanity.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I think that there are definitely people who are better operators than I am. I'm really more like on the sales and marketing side of things. But you know, we've done an exceptional job, I think, for um, you know the size that we are and for the number of projects that we've done, and
Mhm.
it's been a
It
great
looks like it,
opportunity.
and that's why you hire people that I mean, it's complementary skill sets,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. I was talking to
But
my assistant today, and I was like, I am all like DI. You know, I'm all like leader,
mhm,
but highly influencing. You know, sales, marketing, leader. That's my thing. And
mhm.
my studio manager is all S and C. He's all stable and consistent. And like literally, I could like drive us off a cliff. Like that's sort of like how my personality is. It's like, whoa, here we go. We're driving off a cliff. Let's go.
Yep,
And he's like, oh, wait,
new
wait,
ideas.
no, no, you need seatbelts. You need seatbelts. So it's like, and
Yeah,
you need those people on
wait.
your team to, sort of pump the brakes on certain things, but also who are willing to not pump the brakes so much that they completely stop you. I mean, I've had people on my
Yeah,
team who have
trust
been
the
like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that because of X, Y, and Z reason. It's like, well, figure out a way to do it, that kind of thing. So you're always looking for people on your team who are like on board. They still give you good perspective, but they're on board on getting you where you need to go.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, you might just have to replay this last 5 minutes for your team because they're, yeah, they're lucky to have someone that appreciates them so
Yeah, no,
much.
it's been a wild ride, and we're keep riding it. We're just gonna keep doing
Yeah,
it. So
just keep
keep
going,
going.
right? It's good advice. Keep
Exactly.
going. Figure it
Figure it
out.
out.
Very few things can't be fixed.
So true.
Um, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I just had the best time
It was
talking to you and just
awesome.
learning about your story. And then, audience members, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Accelerator. Until next time.